We are running out of time. He is our one shot to fix this thing.
Like an algorithm had just been through the things you like. A lady running in a bikini, kicking someone.
More men can fit in this truck than a clown car. It's unbelievable.
It's a Mary Poppins truck.
I am the most complete fighter in the world. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
You can call it the art of fighting without fighting.
Stick around. Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate on me.
Dodge this.
Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast that everyone doubted would get past episode 1. It's Dodge This, an action movie podcast. My name is Simon Fielder, the comedian, the man, and the lifelong action movie fan. And as ever, I am joined by my good friend, movie fan, and living haircut, Matthew Heighton.
Thanks, Simon. I love how you used as ever for the second one.
That's it. You have got our 100% attendance record thus far in this podcast.
I like that. And that is the real key to an action film. Punctuality.
There you go. It's like a buddy cop situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very exciting this week. It's the top, so I should sort of tee up what we're going to be talking about, even though it's the title of the podcast. But we are going to be talking about the James Nunn, Scott Adkins one-shot movie entitled One Shot.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that title in this podcast because I've got some things.
I got a few thoughts, but before we do that, as ever, have you seen anything that you need to air this week that is not action movie related, but to sort of build like a picture of our personalities for the listeners? I think it's nice that they know that we do exist outside the confines of people getting kicked in the face and knifed to death.
Well, I went and watched Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh my God,
I loved it.
Did you?
I absolutely loved it. And I think I'm in the minority here. Everyone seems to hate it, but I adored it. I thought it was brilliant. I have got some stuff going on in my life that meant that I was crying at the end of the film.
Yes.
So that was great for the 5 people in the cinema.
It hits different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I'm kind of on the fence about seeing it. No, I don't know whether I want to.
I loved it. I thought, so my wife had never properly watched the original Ghostbusters, even though it's one of my favourite films. So she watched it with me last week because she knew I really wanted to see this. And I think because even though I've watched that film once or twice a year, it felt like of all the legacy films that have come out recently, I think this is my favourite legacy film. I think it handles it really well. There's some clunky bits, which there are always going to be to tie in some of the original cast. But honestly, I absolutely adored it. And it felt it's funny. It was sweet. It had a lot of heart and some great set pieces. I don't want to spoil anything, but I thought felt very different to 1 and 2. Felt entirely its own thing at times, but it just married into that world beautifully.
Wow.
And I think I'm in the minority because a lot of people hated it.
Yeah,
and I absolutely loved it.
Well, perhaps I've got to go and see it, and then I can report back. And then over the course of the series, we can see if our outside action movie interests overlap in much the same way.
It does have some good action sequences, so we could if there's a demand for a Ghostbusters episode.
Well, that's pretty nice, actually. Yeah, I really wanted to watch the new movie on Amazon Prime about the guy who wrote Rent, Tick, Tick, Boom, but I did not get around to that this week, sadly. Even though the title sounds like an action movie from the 1990s.
It's a Netflix film.
It's Netflix.
Yeah, and
I'm so
Andrew
sorry.
Garfield.
I'm so sorry,
we were going to
Netflix.
watch it 2 days ago, but in the end, we just watched a lot of Big Mouth. So,
Both 2 great stories about a movie we didn't watch there. All right.
Every week, we'll let you know if we've watched Tick Tick Boom.
You know when we get around to it. In the meantime, we've been hanging around in the lobby too long. I'm going to try and make this like a really sort of awkward like metaphor for being in the cinema. We've been hanging around in the lobby too long, and we're being ushered into the screen because it's time, Matthew, for this week's trailers.
Welcome to the party, pal.
I love that we got ushered in as if we're going to the cinema in the 1950s.
Yes, this is correct. By a person with a torch and a hat, rather than a load of very annoying teenagers and mobile phones. Let's not go down that wormhole. I wish I knew how I stumbled upon this, but first of all, the trailer for quote unquote first Indian martial arts film with a lady star. I think that's what it is. I feel like maybe my cursory glance at this on YouTube has not given me all the information that I need, but it's called Ladki.
Yeah, I mean, this trailer is
extraordinary,
beautiful.
isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
it
like
is.
Everything you think a Bollywood movie is, and I don't know a lot about Bollywood, but spoilers, in this season there is a Bollywood action movie penciled in, which I'm very excited about watching.
Yeah, you're really excited about it, aren't you?
But the trailer for that makes it look like a fairly Western action movie. There's no singing or dancing, whereas this trailer makes it look like a very Bollywood batshit action movie.
There's so much going on in this trailer that it felt like someone had loaded a load of stuff into AI, and AI had written the trailer.
Like an algorithm had just been through the things you like. A lady running in a bikini, kicking someone.
The amount of times it says Bruce Lee.
Yes.
Bruce Lee.
Also, I will say there weren't any official subtitles on the trailer, so I think they were like auto-generated.
I think I got the gist.
Yeah, I got the gist. A lady who like idolizes Bruce Lee is entangled in some sort of problems with bad guys, and then she kicks a lot of them in a very 1980s looking fashion.
Sorry, I over talked there. I'm very sorry for that.
That's absolutely fine, Matthew. For new listeners, we'll be delighted and excited to know that we're in separate countries as we record this. Me in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and Matthew in London in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and England.
I think we've covered that one.
Yeah, it's mad. Also, it looks like Flashdance in a couple of bits.
Flashdance meets Dead or Alive.
Absolutely incredible scenes. Now, last week we touched upon Bruce Willis's, the week that he spent making 3 different films. And this week I've stumbled upon something new, which is a man I've never heard of before.
I'd never heard of him.
Called Robert Bronzy.
I thought it was Charles Bronson when he came up.
He looks very much like Charles Bronson, and he appears to be forging an action movie career based almost exclusively on that fact that he looks like Charles Bronson. He's like quite an old man in his 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
He's a Hungarian man. I did a tiny bit of research, but it turns out he's not really that active like on the internet.
So it's not like he's been doing films for years and now he's breaking over to the West.
No, I think he's been doing a lot of random things, and now he's at the exact age where he looks like peak Charles Bronson, and people have been like, surely people will pay to watch a random Hungarian man who looks like Charles Bronson in a Death Wish ripoff. But he's in 2 different movies that are coming out now. One's called Escape from Death Block 13, great title, where he goes to prison and I guess is Charles Bronson. And one is just called The Gardener, where he plays a gardener, but with a secret past.
The Gardener looked again like someone who had watched maybe had 3 low-budget action films when they grew up and never watched any others and went, and I'm going to make one.
It's important to note
incredible
that the bad guy in The Gardener is played by DTV action legend, British super kicker Gary Daniels, famed for a lot of straight-to-video stuff in the 1990s, and of course his appearance in City Hunter, where he gets to fight Jackie Chan. He's sort of having a little resurgence. Quite a few of the guys who were big in the 90s and 2000s are creeping back. Like Daniel Bernhardt's popping up in a bunch of stuff recently.
You sound like you're just naming names. There could be anyone like John Malone.
I mean, they're basically guys who were like kickboxers when they were younger, then got into movies, and then kind of, I don't know if they were just out of favor, but anyway, they're coming back, and it's great news.
Can I ask, have you read Robert Bronzy's IMDb blurb?
Does it say he's a horseman?
It's incredible. I'm going to read it out.
Please.
It is incredible. Hungarian-born performer Robert Bronzy is a world-travelled actor and professional horseman with a love for the Wild West and classic American film. Bronzy has worked as a carpenter, horse trainer, musician, and former military service member. Professionally trained actor at Maria Mersey Theatre School in Budapest, as well as a stuntman, acrobatic, and judo player. Robert speaks multiple languages, including English, Spanish, and Hungarian. With a film resume building, Robert Bronzi has honed his craft in live performances and Wild West theme shows.
There's a
It's my new
lot to
favourite man.
enjoy. It's not his real name, Robert Bronzi, either.
It is my new favourite man. He sounds like it's been wrote by Robert Bronzi.
It does sound a little bit like it's come from the desk of Robert Bronzi Esquire, doesn't it?
It does.
As much as my sort of intrigue makes me want to watch one of these films, I feel like my better judgment is going to stop me from watching these films.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to watch this film, I'm going in with an open heart, though.
Yeah, fair play. He seems like a good lad. All right, we got one more trailer, and that is going to lead us very neatly into our feature presentation, because this is a film I think I might watch, actually. It's called Castle Falls, and it stars our boy, well, certainly my boy, we'll find out if he's Matthew's boy, Scott Adkins, but also, speaking of absolute legends from the 80s and 90s, Dolph bloody Lundgren, who also directed this movie.
That's my boy, old Dolphy. See, I didn't care for this trailer. Didn't do much for me. Feel like I've seen this film 1,000 times. But the fact Dolph's behind the camera, that's got me in. I'm in.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. He's also in front of the camera, it has to be said. And he gets to have a little scuffles with Adkins throughout. So oddly, even though it is a straight-to-video action thriller, I did think, I was like, that's quite a good conceit. You know, it's like there's some money hidden in a building that is about to be destroyed. I was like, oh, okay, that's a pretty good idea, actually. Yeah, you got a ticking clock. You got like stakes. You got baddies who want to get it. You get
you can
this
contain
guy.
the location for budget.
Yes. Also, apparently, it was started filming pre-COVID, then got delayed by COVID, and then got finished. So yes, one location.
One location. One shot.
Oh God, he's done the segue already. All right, let's do it. I'm excited about Castle Falls, but I've got to say I've been very excited waiting for the release of this one. So it's that time. I'm going to press the button that sets off the jingle.
And now, our feature presentation.
Dodge this.
Did you like the jingle, Matthew?
I did. Well, listeners don't get to experience is Simon pretending to press a button. It's a beautiful thing to see.
We'll fix it in post. All right. So our feature presentation this week is the movie One Shot. One Shot. I don't know where you put the stress on that, really. It works in many different ways.
I mean, you could just call it One's Hot. Just change.
I suppose you just put the space in a
slide
different
the
place.
S over.
Yeah, why not? Matt, do you want to surmise the plot for people?
I mean, it is thin on plot, but it is
Fair.
very simple. There is what we get told is the last active torture camp for America on a self-contained island where they've been trying to get information out of this British guy who says he's a businessman and not a terrorist. And a lady interrogator comes in and says she's going to get the info out of him. But lo, just as they're about to take him to DC for a little MacGuffin that I'm not going to reveal, some truck turns up. And what I'm going to say this because it's not a spoiler because it happens early on. What I can only imagine is the biggest TARDIS truck you have ever seen.
It's a Mary Poppins truck.
It's unbelievable. More men can fit in this truck than a clown car.
That is
it's unbelievable.
That is true. So the truck is full of bad guys, but it's full of about 200 bad guys somehow. And they want to, ostensibly, they want to kill this guy, right? Because he's got information, or they. But
they didn't expect the Navy SEALs team, who have been tasked with taking the interrogator and the baddie to DC. That's their job. Our job is to get you off this island alive.
And
that's
team,
all you need to know.
Thank goodness, is led by Britain's own Scott Adkins. Now, Matt, what is your history with Scott Adkins?
I don't know much about Scott Adkins. I recognise him straight away, but I don't know anything. Didn't come to mind. I've not even looked at his IMDb.
Interesting. All right, well, let me give you the rundown on what you need to know. Scott Adkins is an actor from the UK and a martial artist who, in, I would say, the last sort of 10 years, which is when I would say his career really started like gathering steam, he has filmed or featured in over 40 movies in the last 10 years, right? I personally have seen almost 20 of these movies, which I feel like I should get some sort of award or maybe something on my PlayStation network, like a medal, or I don't know what it. Anyway, I guess it means I'm a fan of his films, right?
That's going to be your spin-off podcast, The Adkins Diet.
Very nice. That's great. If there wasn't already a podcast dedicated to Scott Adkins movies, that would be incredible. So basically, he makes action movies, largely straight-to-video movies. He got sort of very internationally famous off the back of a series called Undisputed, where he plays a Russian fighter called Boyka.
Yes, I've been wanting to watch this for a while.
Well, you should start at Undisputed 2, which is where he arrives, and you can continue through Undisputed 4. I think it goes up to 4. They're all very entertaining. The first one's got Ving Rhames in it. Totally different movie. Completely unconnected. So, yeah, you kind of know what you're in for with Adkins. The twist with this one is that it's directed by another British guy. Very British movie, all told, this.
Shot in Surrey.
Yeah. I read that it was Ipswich.
Well, it's shot in an old base in the UK.
It's an old aircraft base in the UK.
Yeah.
We can agree on that. Directed by a guy called James Nunn, another British guy who started his career with a movie called Tower Block, which I haven't seen, but I do want to go and revisit. And then he has sort of got into this world, in much like Undisputed, the world of sequels that goes straight to video that kind of like find a new life. And he directed the second sequel to Green Street Hooligans.
Yeah, Green Street 3. I didn't even know they had sequels.
Haven't seen any of them.
I read an interview with Nunn just yesterday when I was doing research for this, and I've not seen Green Street 3, but this sold me. He said his influences for Green Street 3 were, and in fact, I'll give you 3 guesses. If you guess one of the influences for Green Street 3, which is about football hooligans.
I can't wait for this.
Film about football hooligans. What do you think is going to influence that film?
Are we talking what movie influenced the film?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. Enter the Dragon.
No.
When Saturday Comes.
No.
Lord of the Rings.
No. But all those films make more sense than the second film I'm going to tell you in this. His first influence was Rocky, which is fine because he wanted underdog film.
Yeah,
absolutely
nice.
Fine. His second influence was The Mighty Ducks.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, it is a sports film.
Yeah, he pitched that in an interview as, I want it to be The Mighty Ducks meets Rocky, but set
in
with underdog football hooligans. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to watch that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm going to watch that.
I have only come across James Nunn recently, sort of off the back of this. And while I'm not really interested in films about hooligans, I feel like it's a very loose conceit to hang basically a martial arts tournament movie on. So I am sort of intrigued to go back. I did watch one of his films called Eliminators, which is on Amazon Prime at the moment. Another very low budget British film, also starring Scott Adkins, and also featuring a WWE wrestler called Wade Barrett, real name Stu Bennett from Lancashire. And that was surprisingly enjoyable based on my sort of going into it thinking this probably won't be great. And it's called Eliminators, which is, it could have had a better title. But low budget, filmed entirely in the UK, very nippy sort of action thriller with some great action in it. So after I'd seen that, I was like, okay, let's get into One Shot.
Interestingly, with this, something I definitely felt in One Shot, I tried to find the budget online, but I couldn't find out the budget because I was very curious. But something that's happened in the last 10 years in the action genre and in other genres is special effects have become more achievable at a low budget because you now pretty much have drag and drop special effects where, you know, digital effects are so cheap and easy to do that you don't have to rig up like an explosion. You can now just drop one in CGI and make it look reasonably, you know, impressive. So it's quite interesting to see that there's like this sudden indie gold rush for these low budget action films, which most of them will just disappear. But then you do get those gems, don't you? Because wasn't The Raid quite low budget? That was one of the,
The Raid was very low budget. I mean, it's shot in Indonesia as well, so I guess, divide the budget by whatever the average budget is for an Indonesian movie. But yeah, I couldn't find the budget for this either, which intrigued me because obviously we have to talk about the central sort of. We've discussed the plot in, I feel like, as much depth as is necessary.
More depth than the film.
That is arguable. But the kind of the quote unquote novelty of this movie is that it is made to look like it is shot in one take.
Yeah.
Now, no one's pretending it was literally made in one take, but we're talking about it's filmed in like chunks of like 10 to 12 minutes and then sort of stitched together in a way that looks seamless. You might have seen this happen in 1917, a couple of years ago. Classically, Birdman sort of reinvigorated
Birdman
this.
is the one take.
Yeah.
Children of Men has one of my favourite action sequence one-shots.
That has got a very great one,
the first time I ever remember going, oh my God, how have they not cut? Like, so much happens in that little... If you don't know the film, it's a very good film, very worth revisiting, especially... In the now, it feels somehow very relevant again.
Yeah.
But there's an action sequence where he is basically just Clive Owen's just trying to get from one place to another, but there's a lot of sort of gunfire just breaking out around.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Explosions. It's beautiful.
That movie's got a few of
really
those. There's that
up.
bit in the car as well, which was like shot in one, and it was just like, just technically, you're like, how on earth did they? So
because that's all practical.
Yeah, and so that's.
Yeah.
Those, I don't know what the budget of Children of Men is, but like pretty high. The budget of 1917, which I could find online, 95 million. Birdman, 18 million. This movie, I would say...
I'd be surprised if it's got over double figures.
Oh, nowhere near. Under 5. I would say under 5 mil. You don't want to be like, well, you've got to take that into account, but you really do, because like, simply on a technical level...
Because that's a lot of the criticism of this film is people are saying 1917 and Birdman comes up a lot in reviews and stuff that it doesn't stand up to that sort of prestige of the one shots that they do.
Of course not.
But but I think it's a very different thing. For all it's like, I think the one shot works really well for this because it keeps it interesting, it keeps it self-contained, and it does mean it pulls your attention where it wants to, but also it does weirdly make it feel like sometimes the bullets aren't a thing. Like sometimes just like, okay. Although there's a really beautiful shot, and I think this is done so well, where one of the seals is basically they're getting shot at, and the camera just does sort of a about a 45D crab to go from sort of being off at an angle from it and going front on. And you get like a Pulp Fiction sort of, the bullets have gone around his shape. And I thought that was really nice. They're obviously very aware that they have to keep certain beats where things happen. I'm trying not to spoil it, but, people have to stay alive or die at certain times.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that I think is great about this is it doesn't feel like anything is unnatural. When things happen, they do feel like they happen at that point, and everything does feel like, that's how it'd play out. But also it does mean that, like, sometimes you're like, oh, come on. Like, your head is well above that box.
I think if you're going to approach it from like a military consultant standpoint, you might be like, well, I think maybe he probably would have been sniped from there. But I think we've already covered that in terms of the 200 identical bad guys that piled out of the back of one truck at the beginning. Like, there's a suspension of disbelief that you've got to sort of approach it with. But I think also the fact that it's the conceit of the one shot and you can't separate that from the plot, because like without that, it's a completely different movie. I think, it's like it happens in real time, and to get from one place to another, you have to follow a person from that place. Otherwise it's just like a camera floating across a field. And I think that's something they did really well, in that there is never a bit where the camera just floats across a field or like follows a cloud or something. It's always like, it goes from the good guys, then you follow the bad guy, then you got to get from here to here. And it's
and it sort of magnetically attaches itself to a new thing for plot and stuff. And it's just, I think that's one of his strengths. But like, two things about this. One, it did make it feel a bit like live action Call of Duty at times.
Yes.
Did very much feel like a video game at times.
For good and bad, I would say. Like sometimes
same.
it did feel
it's not a criticism but at times it's like,
Yeah, it felt like the
Okay.
first level of a new Call of Duty game where they're like, okay,
Yeah.
we got to really, everything's going to happen at once. And then there's going to be a lot of people yelling and like things exploding. And like, it was like, is that good that it's like that? Is it bad? I feel like it's just like, yeah, it does feel a bit like that. And those games are very cinematic for that reason, right?
yeah, that's the thing. And again, to the strength of this film, because they can't just have like the gunfire breaks out and that's it for 70 minutes. They do very well to keep the gunfire in its places while plot, and I use that term lightly, happens. But again, like it is very much a you have one mission, succeed in that mission. I think if they just spent a little more time at the beginnings, giving the characters a bit more than one sort of motivation each, they would have had like a really. Because what I hope for this when can't remember what the actress is called, but when the one lady in this film came in,
Ashley Greene is the actress's name.
Thank you, Ashley
Turns
Greene.
out she was in the Twilight series.
Yeah. She's great in this, but like I thought she was going to bring it underneath it this really sort of muddied debate about what you need to do for the greater good, and all that sort of conversation that happens around sort of things like Guantanamo Bay and stuff like that. I thought maybe that's her mechanism in this, is to muddy the waters and make us see that both sides of things aren't as black and white as they are. But they kept it very black and white.
Yeah, I think they kind of, they wanted to have that discussion, but also, why is anyone watching this film not to have a debate?
Yeah,
just to see Scott Adkins shoot a lot of people.
It's not the film for it, but at the same time, I think just a little bit more of that would have carried some more emotional weight.
Yeah, I agree.
Through the film, instead of, I think one by one, the main characters all said something like, I just want to get this done and Skype my daughter. Yeah. My wife's at home right now.
They all
all
made it very clear that they had families, and Ryan Felipe's character's motivation was, his wife died in 9/11, so he hates terrorists.
Yeah. I would love to put that bit where Ryan Philippe, they talk about Ryan Philippe's backstory, but have the Love Actually beginning playing over when 9/11 happened.
Oh, God.
Yeah, because that is the thing about this film. It does feel like it exists sort of 10 years later than it was supposed to exist.
Right. Well, I think the idea for this, the gestation period, has been quite long. I think like James Nunn talked about wanting to make this a long time ago, and only now being able to like have the sort of experience and abilities, to pull it off. Because I think like I was watching it and like enjoying it on the sort of action movie level, but then I was also just like, I want to watch an hour-long documentary about the making of this. Like,
Same.
I want to see how they did it. I just have so many really boring technical, logistical questions.
Mate, absolutely same. So there is there's basically an IMDb for technology, which I use a lot now.
Oh my
I think
God.
it's called Shot on What it's called. Have you ever heard of this
No,
site?
I haven't. That's the sound of the listenership, which is probably only about 10 going down to 3 now.
Basically, though, it tells you what equipment they used for the film. Because there is, like, just to get into the technicals of this, it is done really well.
Yeah.
It's done really well because they are in this, essentially a paintball arena. It's an old military base, and they've mapped through it so well. I would love to see the rehearsals to talk them through the positioning, because there are points where things are really sort of rough around the edges. There's a bit where a fire extinguisher gets shot, and it's clearly there's a pipe in the wall.
Oh, I didn't see that. I just was like, that's actually really nice.
You can't see the
attention to
pipe,
detail.
but it's clear that like that's what they've done. And it works really well for a second, but there's so much there to think of. Like, I get obsessed with this is really boring, but I think it's really important for when you got fast-paced sequences like this. Normally a cut, you have time to adjust everything. But this is going inside and outside really often. But the lighting always remains, like, never goes overexposed, never goes underexposed.
I literally had that thought of like, can you just remotely do like the shutter speed and the ISO and everything?
You
The
can,
aperture,
but-
all remotely.
Yeah, but how, like, it never flares or sort of, they're on it so fast,
Yeah.
like the crew of this. And like, I want to know if they've got lights inside, because there's so many times you go down the same corridor a different way.
Yeah.
You never see anything. And there's no windows in those
No.
rooms. I find it on a technical level, this film, really impressive.
Yeah. and I know that is not why a lot of people go in to watch a Scott Adkins movie, but like if you're a fan of filmmaking or a filmmaker, and I think, you and I are very low down on the pecking order of like, but we do have cameras and we do make stuff, so we are like nerdy about this shit. But just sort of watching it and going, God, just the planning on that. Like, there's all those people over there, and then he's shooting that guy, and that guy's like pretending to die, and then they got to go in there, and then there's these people, and this thing's fallen over, and then it's just like, what? And I've never seen the sound man in the background running out of the way.
Because that's the thing, like, how many people have they got running around the set? Because obviously they're going to have people shifting stuff as the camera swings around. Like they're very good at swinging the camera away to set the next bit up. But that's the thing. You get the impression like sometimes there's got to be about 3 people behind there, but there's more. There has to be, right? Like, but I was like, I mean, presumably the director is watching this remotely. So there's there's got to be a little video village guy. Is it just him? Who else is there someone behind him? There's definitely multiples, because you always have, for this sort of thing, I don't know if it is a grip who does this, but if you've ever watched a one shot or something like that being done, there's a really famous one from, I don't know the series, but it's a Jim Carrey series where the lounge changes around them, and there's a really good comparison of what you see on the screen and what's happening. It's people moving sofas and that, but you always have someone who holds a camera on like a steady rig, and then someone who is literally
like guiding
their whole job is just to make sure they don't trip. But the speed that sometimes they take for stuff like that, there's a bit where they go through a vent, and for a matter of fact, you've got to have at least 3 people to pass that smoothly through. There's no judder, there's no jerking or anything like that.
That was another video gamey bit where I was like, oh, this is like Metal Gear Solid, where the next level is loading.
That was exactly what I was going to say. When he went on his stealth mission.
There's a few bits where there's like, he's just, creeping around, and then like, it was just like, huh? What was that noise? It was like exactly like Metal Gear. Someone comes creeping in.
I was waiting for him to get in a cardboard box and just walk past in the background.
I will say, the action is like pretty good though. Like considering it's all done quote unquote in camera and in one shot. It's not like we cut from this person here to this person here. You have to sort of see the people shooting, the people dying. Scott, gets it all close in with he knifes up a whole lot of people in this one.
This is what is great about this film. And also, again, where you'd want to see behind the scenes, because sometimes do they put makeup on, or is that all CG? Because the speed that they will change like a person if they got shot to show injuries and stuff is incredible. And if it is CG, it's very good, because I'm very aware of like CG blood, CG muzzle flashes, CG explosions, and most of it in this is pretty good. There's a few bits that are like, okay, I mean, obviously they probably didn't blow that thing up there. It's not on fire in real life for the whole time or whatever, but like all the sort of small scale, all the gun stuff looks pretty good. There's loads of bullet hits that are real, like that sort of fire extinguisher exploding. Well, that's what I mean. The bullets, when they do hit, even though, like I said earlier, sometimes you're like, oh, that would have got you. When they do hit, they've rehearsed this so people look like they're impacted. Yeah, like they've thought about the physics of this to some degree. Also, I will say this, of all the action bits that really impressed me, like I say, the stealth mission was incredible. But there was when they have to sort of resort to sort of knife or hand-to-hand combat, you can tell they're martial artists.
Yes.
Because that feels gritty and really, sometimes you feel like they're actually hitting them. I can't see how they're disguising some punches. I'm just like, well, you clearly just got hit in the head.
Yeah.
Like every blow feels like it lands.
Yeah, there's a couple of good one-on-one fights in this. Most of it is, he's a Navy SEAL, so he's not doing any textbook Scott Adkins, flying kicks or backflips, but he does get to go one-on-one with the main baddie and the main baddie's henchman, who I forget his name, but he's a Scouse guy who's been in a few Scott Adkins movies, and he's a big boy. And him and Scott
he was brilliant
have a really good little scuffle. Again, it's all in one shot, and it's filmed in a very sort of novel way where you're just like, oh, what's happening here? What's going to happen? And then it just kicks off, and they go at it. And the finale, he has another pretty solid scrap with a guy who I believe is from the world of MMA, and I'm
I thought that.
I don't think you can CG cauliflower ears that well, So I think
Yeah.
he's definitely he is a
He
fighter.
looks like he's murdered people.
He's definitely. He
quite
looks. They both look pretty tasty, and their fights are good. You know, they're these huge guys, but they're fast, and
Yeah.
there's no obviously missed punches or pulled punches or like missed hits or impacts. It all just looks really, really solid, and that is, as you say, that's how you know that these people are trained in martial arts.
Yeah, 100%. Like that last fight, that last one-on-one fight is sublime. It is choreographed so well, and again, it feels. One thing I'll say for the action in this, when it amps up and it gets going to its best degree, you feel like you can't take a breath.
Yeah, it's
Because
very tense at times.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I think this is what sells this film. This is where this film could have really fallen down, but they absolutely nail it. They do have 200 people in a truck, but and they have prisoners and they have things. So they have a lot of bodies on this one set, but you never see someone milling about or sort of just feeling like everyone feels like no matter what they're doing, no matter how much you'll never see that person's face, they all feel like they're at a place with a purpose. And you feel like when the camera moves away from the people or the action, that's still happening. They're not just taking a breath or sitting down.
Yeah.
They're all worrying about their own agendas and what they need
There's
to do.
no
So it
AI
feels like-
soldier just sort of walking into a wall like in
Yeah.
a glitch.
yeah. But that's it. I think that's what works for it. Like if you come down a corridor, it's not like they're just waiting for someone to come. Everyone's trying to do something. There is a bit, and again, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a really horrible scene with a suicide bomber, and it's so many sort of emotions going. It's horrible. It's sad. I don't want to spoil it, but
No. But the kid who is acting in that, like, really nailed that, to be fair. Like, because that's a tough role to play. Like, I've volunteered to do this, but then it's like, oh, the reality. And you do see that in his face.
Yeah, and you see there's a beautiful thing where he conveys it without words that I have no option, I have to do this. And the sort of the way they talk to him and the way they sort of get him to carry out what isn't his agenda is it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
There's not an enormous amount of nuance in the movie, but that is quite well handled. And I got to go shout out to the guy who plays the prisoner, I guess, like who they're after. The actor's name is Waleed El Ghadi.
Yeah, he was in Four Lions. He was very
right.
good
Yeah,
in
British
Four
guy. I think he's pretty solid in this role, actually. And you kind of, you don't know what his deal is, and I think he reveals it quite nicely as the story goes. In as much as you have to get it all out in real time in an hour and a half.
I'm amazed we've talked all this way through and we haven't really focused on Ryan.
I know
Phillippe,
we've got to mention Ryan Phillippe, and I would say if you've listened to last week's podcast where we talked a lot about Bruce Willis popping up for quite a short amount of time in movies, no spoilers, but Ryan Phillippe isn't really in this movie as much as the promotional material would suggest.
Oh, I'd go with that.
Yeah.
I'd go with that.
Sort of, you kind of the movie starts and maybe there's like 20 minutes and then you're like, oh, here's Ryan Phillippe. And then he disappears for about another half an hour. And then, it does feel like it was probably a solid day of work for Ryan Phillippe.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You wonder, did they get him in just to put his weight to it, but they knew he wouldn't be able to carry off some of the stuff that Adkins could do? Or, again, did he say, I'll be in this, but I can't give you this much time?
Yeah.
So did they go, right, let's reduce the amount of rehearsal he has to do? The rehearsal, I wonder how many times they ran that sequence.
Yeah. Well, apparently they shot the whole thing in like 20 days or something, which...
Okay. Because you only need one take, Simon.
That's it. I mean, I don't know how they didn't do it in 90 minutes, to be honest. But yeah. Right, I mean, you do wonder about these things. Like Ryan Phillippe in my head is just Ryan Phillippe from... It must be 20 years ago now, like Cruel Intentions, and like
Cruel
Way
Intentions,
of the Gun and
everyone's...
stuff, and you're like, oh, where's Ryan Phillippe been? But my default reaction is to be like, oh, I guess Ryan Phillippe's stock must have dropped a little bit. But you look at his IMDb, and he has just been working for the last 20. He's an actor.
He's just been working
he wants to
solid.
work. Like actors want to act.
He's not given much in this to work with in this role, but he smashes what he's got.
I guess if you put a recognizable Hollywood actor on the poster, it has to do something. Like it must make some people want to watch it. I was a little bit annoyed that the poster that I saw on the Dutch streaming service had Ryan Felipe big on the front and Scott like slightly smaller, which I don't know if that changes by region. I've seen a lot of posters where Scott is the main thing, but I'm like, don't sell this as a Ryan Felipe
You know
movie.
the Netflix things about thumbnails, don't you? How they cater to your
Yes.
taste. Maybe that's your taste.
My taste,
maybe.
it just has 3 Scott Adkins on the front.
Yeah. You want to see the John Malkovich version of this, where it's everyone is Scott Adkins.
They just CG his face onto all the characters. That is a dark rabbit hole to go down.
Weirdly, I would say, like, it's a very, just to sort of wrap up what feelings on the film and stuff. I don't feel like it's 90 minutes wasted, because that's its other advantage. Is it's reasonably short for a film, because they're obviously doing this. The more time they give to this sort of containment, like the plot device they've got of doing it in a one shot, the less impressive it becomes. So keeping it tight really works to its favor, especially like when they introduce timed elements into it and stuff like that, and motivation. I think if you are sort of a loss on an evening or a weekend, so in the day, I think it's well spent. It's never going to be that action film you're talking about down the pub. It's not a Die Hard. It's not like this is going to enter the like cultural zeitgeist for years. People are going to be like, yeah, it's what they did in one shot, and the character of Scott Adkins. Don't even know the character's name.
No, Scott Adkins. I think Sergeant Scott Adkins.
But yeah, it's one of those action films you'll watch, you'll enjoy. You'll probably, unless you're a teenage boy, you'll probably never watch again.
I think that's fair, but I think I think everyone involved in it has done great work. If you're a fan of Adkins,
no criticism,
you're going to be not going to be disappointed. And I think in terms of James Nunn, the director, I'm keeping my eye on him. He's clearly got a great eye for action, and he can shoot the shit out of this stuff. Like, I want to see what he does next. I think this was better than Eliminators, which was still haven't seen it, but I think we should both watch Green Street 3 at some point. Just
100%
for a sort of barometer.
100%. Just to see how like the Mighty Ducks it is.
Yeah. But I think like he's a great director already, and like if he's done this with $3 million or whatever, like imagine what he can do with 10 or 50. So I think he's one to watch.
That I'd very much back you on that. I think he is going to become one of those guys who people look at going, have you seen what this guy can do with very little? And then hopefully, slowly over time, people will give him bigger jobs. Because I'd love to see what he could do with 100 million.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder what sort of action sequence he'd plot. Or is this his thing? Like, because I read up about him. He seems to live, breathe, love film.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think this is a great calling card in terms of like, if you think of your Christopher Nolans and how meticulously planned all of that stuff is, and like scale that down to trying to make a real-time one-take movie with no money. It's $3 million sounds like a lot of money, but once you actually add up what doing anything in film costs, it is nothing. And to have pulled that off at such a low budget, and for it to come out like just a solid action movie, I think my hat is off.
Yeah, it's a nice place to sort of wind this one down. And what is your keep moment? What is your action replay?
We've got to touch on our action replay moment. That was me.
He's pressing the button. Sorry, press the button, Simon.
Playing the jingle in, which I will do in post. I'm going to pick a fairly obvious moment, but I think probably one of the hand-to-hand fights. Yeah, I think the first fight. I wish I'd Googled the name of that actor. While you talk about your one, I'm going to Google him, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, we should. I for some reason, it's one of the only names I've not written down, and he's so good in it. For me, I do think as a prolonged scene, I do think the stealth mission is very good. I think as a prolonged sequence in an action film where it could become very samey, I think that is a very well done, very tense bit of filmmaking. So that is definitely worth it. But if I had to isolate a moment,
yes, please.
There is a kill in this that is sublime. He's hidden behind a crate. He looks through the crate and he goes, kneecap, head. And it is
That's textbook.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's so, as far as murder can be, it's very naturalistic.
Yes, and very military trained. Get it done.
Yeah.
I have Googled him, and I remember his name now. It's Lee Charles. That was the hulking Scouser that I talked about earlier. I heard a podcast where he was interviewed recently. Seems like a jolly nice chap, actually. He has a fight in this with Scott that is, obviously in one take and is pretty bruising, and I think comes out great. If it has to be an isolated moment, there is a very nice bit where Scott dives through a window while an explosion happens behind him.
Mm-hmm.
That, you could snip that out, make it a GIF. I would enjoy that.
GIFable moment.
Oh, I can't rename it now. I've made the jingle already. All right. those are the action replay moments. And it feels like exactly the right time to wrap up. Matt, thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed One Shot. I think as an introduction to Scott Adkins, it maybe isn't the exact right movie.
Yeah, I don't think I'm on the Adkins diet yet, but I do like him as an actor.
I'm going to send you in the direction of Undisputed 2, I think, and hopefully that'll hook you in, because that is a very old school, new school movie.
He holds himself well as a leading man, so I am happy to go in on some Adkins food.
Great news. Also, very exciting, he's in John Wick 4. Yeah, so we're all excited about that. It's taken 3 movies for Chad Stahelski, the guy behind John Wick, who knows Adkins from other stuff, to go, let's get you in this one.
Have you heard the plot of John Wick 4?
I haven't. No. Is it a lot of bad people try to get John Wick?
Yeah, but John Wick goes after them apparently because there is a bomb in a kennels.
Get out! Oh, he's ended the whole thing on a dad joke. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
it feels right.
Yeah.
It feels right. That was episode 2. We did it. It's been and so far pretty solid actually. Loved Raging Fire. Really enjoyed One Shot. I mean, I guess the point of this is that I'm not going to pick films that we're obviously going to hate, because otherwise it's going to be a very short podcast.
But also, we don't want to be mean about creative work.
No, exactly. And I think this was a really solid example of making a small budget go a really long way with a good idea and just great execution and really solid people in front and behind the camera.
Yeah, and again, I think for what you give to me, and I hope listeners get this as well, is I would never have picked this film up. Never would have got there on my own. So I'm glad I watched it.
You're more than welcome. And if you're listening to this and you think, oh, I'd love to watch that, go and find it on whatever your regional video on demand service is. And I don't doubt it will arrive on Netflix in the next 6 months. But, chuck a bit of money their way, because they didn't have a lot and they've made something very solid. Matthew, how can people find out everything they want to know about you being a trained horseman, etc.?
Well, go to my IMDb profile, which I'm writing this evening. No, I just, again, always on Twitter, Matt Heighton. And if you want to now and again see some pictures, that's Instagram.
And is that Matt Heighton over there as well?
No, because someone got there first. So it's Matt Heighton.
That's the worst. That's the absolute worst. Yeah. I'm at Simon Fielder on all of the above. And thank you very much for joining us on episode 2 of Dodge This. We will see you in 2 weeks' time for another installment. I can't tell you what the movie is just yet for legal reasons, by which I mean we haven't decided it yet. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Goodbye.